I think our biggest strength is our teamwork and watching out for each other. So if someone makes a bad play or is in the wrong spot, everyone has each other's back, and we're really tenacious in game. Like, we don't go down easily. And if we get an inch, we take a mile. So we're just an undying Hydra.
Topical. I feel like that was recorded after the game one. But really, that was already recorded in the bank. That's pretty much exactly what happened in game one.
Well, game number one was definitely a CLG victory story. We're about to head into game two of Team Envy versus CLG. Team Envy has selected red side for this second round in the bout. But if they're going to be on either side, they have got to be worried about Huhi having another performance like he did in game one.
Yeah, and the unique thing in these best-of-5 series when teams have different preferences on side selection is you end up almost getting a complete redo of the champion select, because blue side, red side, CLG doesn't have any need to change their bans unless they think something has gone wrong in that phase, and then the 4 bans that Envy threw against Huhi could still remain the same, but you have to imagine they'd switch something.
Yeah, you're going to throw 5 bans at him, 4 bans at him, but the Vel'Koz, I feel like, was a big problem for them to deal with, especially with the range disparity. The Cassiopeia did 1/3 of the damage of the Vel'Koz. Vel'Koz did 3 times the damage. It was insane.
Right, and we were kind of talking about this during the break. Artillery is one of those poke mages, which you don't see that often, who are generally weak to very hard engage or assassins. And Envy didn't have either of those things. It's actually rare in this current meta that you have a team competition that doesn't have that. And Huhi's mastery of the long range of Vel'Koz really shut down almost all of Envy's team composition once we got to the team fight.
Yeah, the Cassiopeia we were talking about is the battle mage. They are not effective at all against the artillery. He does not get to get in range to deal the damage. And like you said about the redo, we're seeing the same bans come through for both teams in the same first pick.
Might as well run it back if it worked the first time. At least that's the story for CLG. Team Envy, though, they'll pick up Hakuo, that Thresh again, but Lyra going to be on the Gragas this time. Or they could potentially send it top.
Yeah, but the first change in the draft, everything else is the same. COG are actually kind of the kings of the salty runbacks. At least they're willing to do so. In the MSI Finals, they did exactly the same draft 2 games in a row against SKT. And that almost never happens. So unless Envy actually disrupts what COG is doing, or if they have some insane initiator, Gragas might actually be enough to block the Vel'Koz as far as that goes.
Yes.
But if COG doesn't think that is the case, I could see them doing exactly the same draft until Envy disrupts.
I actually completely agree. I feel like the only change you make here is that you end up not picking the Vel'Koz because of the Gragas. You still pick the Gnar and be able to just play that blind if they are going to last pick their mid. And I don't even know if Envy go with Cassiopeia here. Syndra, I think, is also quite good. LeBlanc, you know, even though these champions have received some nerfs, the Cassiopeia, though, seemed to be the one that he was thinking they were going to go for. Okay, they're thinking they were going to go for some more tanks, but the Varus was banned last time, and this is that Wish Fusion Classic for Apollo.
All right, we're going to see the roles matched this time, mirrored. Or potentially not. Again, I have to reiterate the Gragas could be a flex pick, but it is likely that we are going to see those roles mirrored this time, so expect to see potentially similar bans in this second phase of banning. Team Envy going to go ahead, remove Gnar first and foremost, so there's that disruption of CLG.
Exactly. And this is what happens when you have the winning team versus the losing team. The losing team is the one that has to switch it up because it was just shown that their previous draft strategy did not lead to victory. So the Gnar ban changes things a bit for Seraph. Darshan controlled a lot of that game quietly, so I think getting the Gnar out of there was important.
Yeah, and are they going to ban the Aurelion Soul as well? Because this is a little awkward. I would feel like Envy would want to ban something else, then first pick the Gnar in the second phase, because that seemed to be the thing that CLG was comfortable playing into anything. So if you pick the Gnar, you get to see what CLG wants to play into it, and then you get to counterpick for against Huhi, which seemed to be the big problem in the later parts of the game. But this is what they've decided to go for here.
One more ban from CLG. Renekton. So 2 top lane bans from Counterlogic Gaming. Team Envy going to take out 1 top laner, 1 mid laner, but it is important to note that they did leave Huhi's favorite Star Dragon on the table. We might get to see it this time around. Galio locked in for Envy.
I don't know if Aurelion Sol would be that good against the threat of a mid lane Galio, because your roams can be matched very easily by the Galio ultimate, but it is still left up there as a bait, so to speak, if they want him to take it.
but it's also a flex pick, right? So now you get to say, okay, we didn't have to blind pick our top or mid laner here. We did kind of half of that, and we'll be able to play whatever we want into whatever matchup as our final pick here for Team Envy. So they get kind of their pick of the litter.
CLG gonna lock in the Victor for Huhi in the mid lane this time. A lot of AoE power, a lot of wave clear, but not quite the same range that Vel'Koz commanded in game number 1.
Yeah, definitely not. But I do think Victor is good against balled up tanky team compositions, which is what Envy is building here. The Gravity Field as well as the Chaos Storm and Laser shred all of them at once. So it's interesting because you don't think of Huhi as a big Victor threat. He played it once, but it was banned last game and then picked now that it's not banned. So there's a little bit of intel I feel like Envy has about Huhi's Victor.
Playing it once just means you got a 100% win rate, Jack.
Yeah.
Add the stats. Envy, looking at that last pick, and it's going to be Rumble in the top lane. Some AoE power of their own.
This is a very magic damage heavy composition. Even the Varus does the percent HP magic damage, and you typically build attack speed now. So across the board, if Counter Logic Gaming get to a point where they start building MR with the Zac and the Shen, it's going to be pretty rough for Envy. But they do have a winning match up top. They have kind of one that you can play equal in the mid lane, and they do have a little bit of that winning jungle early. So they do have a top side of the map they can play towards.
Yeah, Envy definitely has that early jungle advantage, and you want to have a lane that can convert on that early jungle advantage. Rumble can push in Shen, but I feel like the kills would almost certainly have to come from tower dives. So that then comes down to execution, whether or not Omar is there to shadow. So not the easiest execution for Envy, even if they can get an early game gold lead.
Plus, we know Shen is difficult to dive just on his own. The Spirit's Refuge, the threat of the taunt coming out, it can be very difficult to make sure that dive is clean and you don't end up just giving another kill back over to him, making that a 1-for-1, and that's not what Envy needs coming into this second game. They want to get off to that explosive start, have the beginning that they weren't able to find after the initial couple of minutes in game number 1. We talked about their 1,000 gold lead that they had for themselves, but they just couldn't make anything real and tangible out of it, which is what they have to do to take down a team with the coherency and the teamwork of CLG.
Really excited for this game. We did see the variation of the draft. CLG picking the same bot lane jungle core, but then completely changing the complexion of their team with that solo queue pick. Victor Shen plays much different than the Gnar and Vel'Koz. Shen, unless he gets hilariously ahead of the Rumble, will not have push in that lane. So they're going to have to play with that vacuum in top lane rather than having the freedom to go wherever they want.
And like you said, there's a shove advantage, of course, for the Rumble over the Shen. But in that top lane, Rumble always has to be a little bit hesitant because the Shen has such great gank assistance. And with alongside Omar God Zac, the Rumble is actually a very kind of something that you know, within the realm of reason, you could gank that and get some kills from Seraph.
Nobody trying anything really crazy here at level 1. Darshan moving up into Seraph's territory here, but not really going to get much out of it. Just walks at him and says, hey, better get out of that bush. Sure enough, Seraph does, falls back, but nothing really alarming yet. Although it was a late invade from Envy in game number 1, so you never know. Maybe they'll try it again.
And it was a late invade that worked. So doing the same invade twice in a row would be rather risky. And you'd almost expect CLG to either be ready for it or just have a different plan of how they would respond. One thing that has happened is Huhi has pushed Nisqy back out of mid lane. Nisqy as Galio is one of the best Raptor pullers there is. The Q and the passive from Galio going off means you almost instantly clear Raptors, especially with Gragas. So
they're going to try it again.
They're going to try it again, but this time they don't have their mid laners to help.
This time, CLG is wise to their tricks. They've got 3 men waiting. Summoner spells popped by Envy, trying to get themselves away. Afro uses both of his summoners as well, only for the heal of Apollo.
It's already a 10-second delay on the red buff. So yeah, Hakuo's low, but he's the guy they put most of the damage on. Support's coming lane with 4 health potions, so he's going to be able to be totally fine for the laning phase.
Afro just dumps the
Once
cowbell again.
Everybody's focusing on getting their jungler off to an okay start. Right here, Hakuo delaying. He's going to get slowed. Maybe in range for Q. Not from Alistar.
Afro did spin both summoners. Once again, it was a 2-for-1 summoner spell trade. Envy actually came out of that one ahead by that count.
I like the conservation of the summoner spell there from Apollo, because it looked like you were going to go flash over the dragon pit and panic a bit, but kept it cool and then also just used the heal.
That's what we were talking about this guy, right? Like, seeing development of him as a player that we haven't seen in the past, about how he could potentially have this upward ceiling and showing that patience is part of that.
Yo.
Taunt from Darshan on the Seraph. Gonna be taking him below 200 HP, then getting himself back.
Yeah, fighting in the minion is not something Seraph would expect, but actually wins that trade. And that makes Seraph have to back because of the place where he put the lane.
It's so interesting because, like, Shen, everybody considers him just this tank that's going to have passive lanes. But once you hit level 2 and you pass through your Q, you do so much % HP damage of the enemy, and you have the Grasp the Undying. You take people like that Rumble very low, and he's already got his teleport out, whereas Darshan has his TP still, hasn't even burned a potion. Big advantage already.
That's an amazing start for Darshan in the wave. And when talking about the way these teams match up and where teams are going to find the advantages, we know that COG has an advantageous one up top lane with Darshan against Seraph, as Seraph has been struggling pretty mightily towards the second half of this split.
And this is a slow push from Darshan, and this will allow for Omar God to farm jungle, potentially look for a gank top lane if he wants, but Lyra's going to go find this and spot him out. Let's see. That'll be a kill if he hits him.
No. Nice flash away from Omar, making sure that he got away from the clutches of Lyra there. Lyra should be able to collect this Gromp for himself as a consolation prize.
Yeah, that would have probably even given Lyra enough time to kill the blob. So smart jungle invade. That is the cost of the delay that Omar God had to undergo when Apollo and Hakuo invaded. So I think both games, the level 1 was won by Envy with that late invade.
And you could see that CLG was ready and waiting for it this time as well with the flash and the ignite and the pulverize from Aphromoo, but it just wasn't enough. Envy has this strategy down, but now Hakuo's in some trouble. Sticks in the damage into him, but now they're turning it right back onto Apollo. Dark Pass is pulling him back to safety. Piercing Arrow comes out, finds the back of Aphromoo. CLG going even on that trade.
Yeah,
And a little bit better.
when we saw that invade on the top side, Lyra left some wards there as well, and that'll keep Seraph safe. And you have to do that because he already burned his teleport. You don't want him to get ganked because then he gets incredibly far behind in the matchup without being able to return to lane. So I like that they're keeping him safe in the early parts of the game. Lyra can focus on the bottom side of the map and try to punish the Zac to the pit.
Really similar to last game, but not quite to the same degree. Envy with a gold lead over their opponents without any kills on the board. Lyra just hanging around, seeing if he can spot Omar God out. Always just giving him the hardest possible time in the early game jungle.
Yeah, he's waiting for the Raptors respawn. He knows there's no flash on Omar God. At the very least, he wants to steal these Raptors away.
Iski's there too, so mid lane shove and priority right before.
Doesn't get it. Omar is able to smite it away, and this is very similar to what happened in game 1. And with the Zac here, COG is not making any aggressive plays in their laning phases.
But I also like the route here. Omar God's going to go look towards the enemy Raptors potentially because he has his Smite Stone, so he can actually go ahead and start going into the enemy jungle.
Yeah, and then you also kind of have to wonder, what is the end game plan here for Lyra? If you're just trying to get a gold lead on Omar, at some point you have to burn flashes from lanes or kill lanes.
Hello?
Omar, you were standing on top of a ward there, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. There was a ward there, and he didn't even use the Q to hit the ward afterwards for a stun. It looked like he was watching the lane, and we saw Contracts do this yesterday. So a lot of junglers will watch the lane as they approach, not where they're actually just standing.
A little bit of a mistake there from Omar God walking up, losing 80% of his health for it. Hakuo.
It's usually more important to watch the lane in the position because you know where you are, right? You don't always know there's a ward next to you, but you know where you are, and then you can go ahead and watch the lane and see how it adjusts and moves. But caught a little bit there.
Chaos Storm used
Just to clear.
by Huhi in the mid lane. Yeah, just to clear the minion wave out, give him an opportunity to get himself back, get that important early buy. Hakuo keeping Afro and Stixxay zoned away. Look at the CS lead, 58-38. Stixxay and Aphromoo again on the back foot in this bottom lane, just like game number 1.
Well, the flash and the ignite from Aphromoo being down is big because the Alistar can no longer contest the wave at all, and he has to play back, which forces the Tristana to play back. Because if you get hooked, you get played, you're going to be in for a lot of damage, force you to lose the lane and back up even further. So Aphromoo kind of, giving away that advantage early, trying to get something back, but it has kind of fallen on Stixxay here to not get as much gold because of it.
Nice. Death sentence. Hakuo definitely hasn't lost the magic from game number 1. Aphromoo pulled back by the Flay, more damage coming out, and they win that trade handily.
And you saw Hakuo waiting for the animation of the rocket jump before he goes for Flay. And that's why he delayed it for so long there, and Aphromoo had to cover.
Yeah, and more invading than transitioning immediately towards the jungle. They are extending this lead onto Omargod, but I do need to keep bringing up the fact that this is what happened in Game 1, and it did not lead to an Envy victory. So they need to find a way to take this advantage that Lyra has over Omar and pay it forward more so to the lanes. As much as they're smashing Stixxay and Aftermove, 10 CS.
Yeah.
That's the advantage right now. And what, 100 damage onto the turret? It doesn't have these lasting implications for how much pressure they have on the map and how that needs to convert.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was last game. They should have immediately swapped after they had the turrets go down. Look at this hook.
Here we go again. Aftermove going for it. Trying to get this one going all the way in. Stand United has been used. Galio coming in. The Heroes entrance for first blood as the cast comes out, knocking Darshan back. I don't think they'll quite be able to find him, but they do. I'm a liar yet. The Flame will pull him back, but Darshan gets away to safety. It's a 1-for-0 for Team Envy.
Afromoose started that play and Apollo was level 5. He hits 6 right before Afromoose is going in and has that distance to close. Hit 6 is able to root and CC chain him right here. Apollo will hit 6 off of the minion as Afromoose is already committed to the play and he gets hooked. So now when he tries to get out, he's gonna get point blank ultied here and the root will happen and then they're able to pick up Afromoose who can no longer escape.
Yeah, and I do have to question a bit why Aftermove was so aggressive. They're up against the Galio in the mid lane and Seraph, who is in range to teleport, so they try and make a play with the Shen ult, but they're going to get outnumbered. Envy responded very quickly to that Aftermove initiation. We're clearly ready for it, as they've been pushed up almost the whole game. They're probably communicating, yo, we got double TP and a Galio. If they do something, we're going to counter this right away, and they do.
And I like that they have the double teleport, like you said. They have so many ways to play to the bottom side of the map side that has been winning for them historically, where Apollo's been doing so much work. Now you get to reinforce him. And something that we talked about where, you have to kind of accelerate the pace of the game. I feel like there isn't as much of a timer on Envy this game because of the fact that they just don't have this losing top lane where their turret is slowly, perpetually going down. It's not that matchup. You don't have to fast swap after you win bottom because your top's gonna lose. Nothing like that because you're winning top and you're winning the bottom side.
Jungle, still pretty even this game though. Darshan and Seraph pretty close back and forth in the top side. Omargod, about 600 gold down compared to Lyra still. Those jungle timers.
Try and steal this with the jump and smite. They're going to go in.
They're doing it yet again, but this time it's Lyra who's got the secure Aftermove, and Omargod now finding themselves stuck down there in the pit. Stixxay throwing away, let's bounce, bringing it back. Lyra trying to get himself away from danger, but Omargod's going to be taken down. Stixxay grabs the kill onto Lyra. The blob's still coming back, but it's a double kill for Nisqy.
Ah, and that's an Infernal Drake and 2 kills going over to Envy for just a kill in return. So honestly, playing to the strong side of the map there, everybody just kind of capitalizing on the advantage. And I feel like CLG overstepped, but look at this. Here comes Seraph, he has ulti right on top.
Nisqy wants to go for the taunt, finds it. Now Huhi trying to get himself away from this one. Seraph will not allow that to happen, grabbing the kill.
And they're starting to transition these pushing lanes into place, forcing the Drake early. Now can they continue to force around that bottom side to get that first turret and move it around the map? This is the game them needs to play. Bigger lead than they've ever had during that first game.
And just the change up in the draft is really kind of what's the result, or this is the result of that, right? Now you don't have that losing top lane. You flex the Galio so you can have whatever mid matchup and top matchup you wanted, and you could play it from there. So Envy were able to give themselves a winning side lane on top of having the winning bottom side. Oh, that really helps you open up the map. It doesn't put pressure on you at all, and CLG are in a position where they don't get to be as proactive because of where the lanes are going to be.
Want to also comment a little bit of a build difference between Envy and CLG here in the bottom lane. Hakuo, ooh, barely getting away from Aftermove as he face checks that brush, but Blade of the Ruined King going to be the goal here for Apollo, as Stixxay will be going for that traditional crit build for the Trist.
Yeah, like I said about Big Varus, we don't see it too much anymore, but it's the attack speed build, the Blade of the Ruined King. We even see Brunette's Hurricane, Static Shift. A lot of these attack speed items come through for the Varus. And it's about getting those stacks, getting your fervor up, and then using your abilities to get the percent HP. And that's why the magic damage is something that I'm concerned about. It's a very magic damage heavy comp for Envy if this does go super low.
More back and forth here.
I'm going to be interested to see what happens when Darshan gets the Adaptive Helm here, because it was buffed on this patch as well to be even more efficient. And I do believe there will be a point where he starts winning these duels against Rumble. Adaptive Helm plus T-Matter plus Hydra. Shen could end up just pushing Seraph around.
Yeah, and Seraph has not gone for penetration. He's gone for the Merc Treads just for the CC here, just to try and survive a little bit. There we go. There's some spell penetration for him finally. but it's going to be a while. Like you said, the trades will start going in favor of the Shen. You'll also have the split push advantage, and Rumble will want to team up and just be with the team and looking for those ultimates and those kind of, say, follow-up engages most of the time.
Teleports are available. Look at the mind game there with how much Envy has been invading red. They're like, all right, we need Alistair, Control Ward, Zac, and Victor just to start this respawn of the red buff. Meanwhile, Lyra's off killing Raptors on the other side of the map because they've been harassing COG so much, and they gain pressure just off of the thought of a red buff invade there, pulling Huhi and Aphromoo away from them.
Next Drake will be Mountain when the contest comes to that, but it's not going to be live for a couple of minutes still. Envy with a 4-1 lead, 2,000 gold up. Hakuo moving into the enemy jungle, but seeing some CLG members around there means he doesn't want to go too much deeper on his own just yet. That sentence comes out, finds its way onto Aphromoo, buys an extra second or two for Apollo to lay auto attacks in here.
Yeah, and Aphromoo is really far behind right now. Just level 6, boots of mobility because he was hoping to make roam plays, but that's not what he did last game where he did Sightstone for more health in lane and then just tried to defensively ward. They've actually opted into a few fights, which is what got them in this situation in the first place, where in game 1, they were much more passive. Now, he's low, he can run fast, but it doesn't matter if you don't want to run towards anything. Sure, it goes most likely over to Envy.
Yeah, Lyra on this side just to kind of babysit, and when you have an advantage, just play to that lane for just a little bit. You don't even have to gank, get aggressive, give them the space to get that turret. And now, what you would want to see from Envy, hard shove topside with this Rumble, and then transition and catch CLG off guard by swapping your lanes at that moment.
And it's that macro point where things started to look shaky for them last game. That's what you already mentioned, Zyrene. Let's see if they can fix it this time around. They've got the lead, 3,000 gold up. They've got the momentum, the tempo in their favor, but they've got to continue. They've got to translate to avoid falling into the same trap that, like you also mentioned in game number 1, they fell into so many times in spring, losing it in the mid game.
Yeah, it's going to be a little bit more awkward this game right now because of the timing of the Mountain Drake in a minute and 30 seconds. So they may want to keep their bottom side on the bottom side because they just bought the Ruby Sightstone. You'll have the wards to ward at the Drake, and then after the Drake is when you would want to start moving around the map a little more.
Yeah, plus Envy is actually really happy about forcing mid-game team fights with the current state of their items. They have Abyssal Mask for the Galio, Magic Pen, and hopefully level 11 by the time the Mountain Drake spawns for rank 2 and Equalizer on Rumble. That'll have such a larger influence over the fight than a teleporting in Shen if they do it right. So Envy's going to be able to play around a lot of really important power spikes.
This is a bait.
Uh-oh. Well, the Equalizer comes down. Darshan now trying to get himself away. Lyra shows up. Darshan still with a flash. Cast comes out. Darshan's flash is gone. He's forced away from the turret.
He had 2 options there. Body slam flash, then you just trade the flashes, or throw the cask. And it looked like it may have not hit Darshan back into him, but he chooses to flash it just in case. And that's going to give them pressure on the top side as they swap the support and the jungle to the top side of the map to try and get the pressure there. And they leave Apollo in a side lane up against Stixhead.
That was an interesting play from Aphromoo, trying to headbutt the buff far enough away to where it would get impatient and reset, but it didn't go down quite fast enough. And so the smite was there from Lyra to complete that steal. Now the Mountain Drake up in 10 seconds with Darshan having just used his teleport means if he wants to get into the fight, it's stand united or bust.
Yeah, and Seraph isn't level 11, nor does he have his ultimate, so the question then becomes, is this gold lead too big for Envy? They can just get Mountain Drake anyway, and we're really starting to see the impact of the map pressure they have, because despite Rumble's ult not being up, COG is just going to invade the other side of the jungle and ignore this Mountain Drake.
Mountain Drake going the way of Envy. The Drakes have been so high value this game as well. Mountains and Infernals all over the place.
They may dive Seraph on the top side here. It's a Rumble. It's so easy to dive him. He's so squishy. You have 3 tanks looking for the dive here, and they're giving time for Lyra to actually get to the top side.
Oh man, Envy.
It almost looks like
they've got to be aware of this.
Second guessing their plays. They pulled the trigger on a few early, and it gave him a deficit. Now Lyra is here. He's got a lot of backup.
It's that game of seconds. If you waste any of them and you hesitate, then the other team's just going to be 2 seconds caught up.
CLG seems like they might be a little bit rattled right now, losing some of that confidence, some of that playmaking ability.
It's definitely harder to play League of Legends when you don't have winning lanes and you can't play off of them in the early parts of the game. And CLG talked about their teamwork, so they're looking for mid-game at this point. You draft the Shen knowing you aren't going to be able to like kill whoever you're playing against or win that lane. And you don't pick it for that reason. So they have kind of seeded this early part of the game, and we'll see what they're able to do with it. But when you seed the early game, it's a position that I personally don't like being in because it gives proactivity to the other team.
Oh, he almost predicted that flash back as well. Hakuo was very, very close to turning that into an amazing play. but instead they'll just have to settle with popping the flash from the enemy Tristana, as well as setting themselves up for a Rift Herald. This time, though, they got to make sure they pick up the eye.
Yeah, I don't think they have any problems with it because there's not much of a COG team that can disrupt this. They picked a lot of scaling once again this game, and it's just going to be a long time until they're relevantly able to fight. Huhi needs a lot more time. Niski's had a large impact on the game already with that huge Mad Resist build. Huhi can't even shove him in consistently. Envy's in a really good spot here.
I mean, we talked about Niski having some of those shining moments. Even though he's a rookie this split, he stepped up for this team. And honestly, 2-0-2 on this Galio, he's doing it again this game.
Yeah, and this pick is going to be great for them later on, too. Because you can 1-3-1 with it with double teleport. It also allows you to push the pace of the game. If you dive with your Thresh or even your Gragas and get in there, this is how you can get underneath those turrets and get those tier 2s, get the inhibitor turrets. You don't have to just play like Siege, clear minions back and forth. You do have some dive potential with it. But this is a tempo advantage, very heavy for Envy here.
Now Darshan in some trouble, nearly taken down by the bottom lane duo of Team Envy as they pressure onto the tier 2.
And Paul's been doing fantastic. Look at that. Seraph able to clear this out.
Yeah.
This might be 2 turrets for 0.
He clears it out without even having to use Equalizer. If the next wave comes through, he's just going to equalize that one. So Hui's doing his best to keep this turret alive. They still lose 90%, 80% of the health on that turret.
What you do now as Envy, push mid and you can stay top because Huhi has to choose, right? Huhi can go mid and clear this wave, and then topside, you just shove that into the turret, and now they're going to back up as they're going to try to reset. And it looks like it's mostly for Baron control afterwards. Get all your wards back if you're Hakuho. It's up in 50 seconds here.
Envy, though, needs to remember what happened in game number 1 around Baron. If they go for those, you've got to make sure you can secure them. That was a big turning point for them in last game. Everything was so close up until that point. They were even ahead. But then the steal from Omar God changed things completely and drastically. And Envy can't afford to make a throw like that in a second game.
Yeah, 4,500 gold before 20 minutes is also a very, very big lead. We got to see that drop-down graphic a couple minutes ago where COG was 10-17 with a deficit at 15 this split, and Envy was 18-11, I believe, with the lead at 15. Those numbers are actually fairly abnormal for both teams. COG is much better than average with deficits, and Envy is much worse than average with leads. So yes, this game is still Envy favored, but it's a higher chance of COG winning than if it was 2 different teams, right?
Right.
So still very much as thank you for the graphics once again.
Yeah.
I almost had the right numbers.
One
but
off.
those are actually not as high win rates as you would expect with that much of a gold lead at 15.
Lyra loses about half his HP there, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time, eating some damage from Huhi's laser, but the wave clear from the Victor makes it so incredibly hard to push against this tier 1. We mentioned in game number 1 how hard it was to push against the Vel'Koz mid without having that Rift Herald, but trying to do that against the Victor without using it is going to be equally tough.
Yeah. And Destin the blue buff, and they get it for themselves. And this gold advantage that we've been talking about, it's not just on a single person. Envy are actually ahead in every single lane. Every single person is up in gold over their opponent, even the support being about 800 up. And so this is an advantage that you can pretty much just have a team fight and everybody's going to be able to pull it. You can't really, as CLG, just go for a single person and shut it down and kind of get back into it. Everybody has an advantage here.
All right, here we go. Rift Herald. Headbutts in. Nearly takes it, but Nearly's not going to cut it. It looks like CLG can take care of this.
But it gives you pressure on the side. People grouped up mid, top turret's very low. Niski's going to walk towards it. It's going to be Stixxay to try to answer here. And even though it's blind on the side, he doesn't have full vision coverage. He's going to have to wait for it to go down. Local gold.
Did it give it
25? I don't think so. Just got 125 for that, so.
You took him below 100% health. Congratulations. That's the turret. Denying the local gold is still a small victory for COG, but the larger victory is still trending towards Envy with that big golden turret lead.
Yeah, and like I said with the double teleport, the 1-3-1 they can play puts pressure on CLG because they don't have somebody who can answer that global, one of the globals at least on the side lane. And they'll always have at least some sort of instant group team fight advantage, which will put pressure on CLG to try and make something happen during that time.
22 minutes into the game, Baron is live. Mountain Drake in 20 seconds. Envy backing themselves up right now to make sure they're regrouped and ready to fight for that. You can see the Runaan's Hurricane now completed onto Apollo's Varus for extra crit, extra attack speed, plus that lovely AoE capability the item is trademarked for. Frozen Heart, the second item completed onto Niski to slow down some of the attacks from both Stixxay's Tristana, and it'll also hurt Darshan a bit.
Yeah, and the fact that Apollo is in a pretty fed space here is very important for Envy's late game team fights. We talk about all the magic damage that Envy is loading in with the Gragas, Galio, and Rumble. Even Galio being one of the lower damage mages. If you stack MR, you're really not taking that much damage until a fed 80 carry comes into the mix and forces you to build the standard. COG is not building the standard. They're stacking MR. So for COD to win a team fight, they almost have to kill Apollo early, since Blade of the Ruin King Hurricane against armorless opponents is going to shred.
Stixxay and Omar trying to take down Nisqy in the 2 versus 1. Nisqy wants that blast cone to get himself out, does find it. But meanwhile, Lyra grabs the Mountain Drake for the side of Team Envy. That is yet another one going their way. 3rd Drake overall, 2nd Mountain. Great neutral objective control from them this game.
And the 1-3-1 pressure is really going to start paying off for Envy here. And CLG, it's very hard to answer without having another global to actually deal with it. You only have one to match up with another one. So there's an unanswered side lane, or you have to force a 4-on-3 that can be collapsed on. Oh, from a macro perspective, Envy can just keep playing this out.
Yeah, they're playing it very well right now. They're forcing situations on COG where COG will have to engage on them to stop an objective from falling. And COG is not willing to do so because they would most likely lose that engagement. So as long as they keep Nisqy spaced properly, as long as they have Lyra around to disengage at whatever Alistar Shen flank they try and go for, and as long as they're able to push lanes where Victor isn't, since his wave clear is so substantial, they're going to continue to extend this lead.
And extending their lead and pushing these lanes and taking these advantages, it goes back to Champion Select, where we were originally watching CLG build the same composition as in game number 1, but then Envy, they ban away the Gnar, they pick up the Rumble for themselves. They're saying, we're not playing this same game, and it works so much better for them in game number 2. Seraph is just in a completely different role.
Yeah, just changing up the matchup, having a winning matchup for yourself. But like you said, going back to the Champion Select here, CLG, if we do just keep having this Huhi clears mid, Stixxay clears top, they have decent scaling here with the Tristana and the Victor. So when it gets to the late parts of the game, Envy, it's once again, they still do have to kind of make something happen here. If we just have this stalemate where everybody's grabbing goal, that's a little bit more CLG favored, just a little bit, but it is favored towards them.
Right. They still have Tristana, they have Victor, they have Zac on the front line. He's very, very capable in those team fights, like we discussed last game. So you've got to be able to say go if you're Team Envy.
And COD has been willing to first pick Zac 2 games in a row, despite almost knowing it's going to get bashed around a little bit early. So the faith they have in Zac's ability to make game-changing plays in team fights is very high. Personally, if I was drafted for a team, I wouldn't first pick Zac because I don't like having an opt-in early game deficit just for a team fight later. And we're kind of seeing the repercussions or the cost that you can have when you first pick a champion like that, as Envy has taken over this early game, and there's really nothing Omar God could have done about it. So will CLG be able to overcome this deficit with all the scaling they picked up is the thing they had to opt into in that draft phase.
And the other thing to kind of consider there is that Logic Gaming, one of the teams that have those bloody games, right, and they have good macro sense. If I'm Logic Gaming and I'm drafting against Envy, who haven't been doing well in mid-late game, we'll see though.
Oh, here we go, making the damage onto Apollo, nearly able to bring him down, but he crashes into the wall, still dies to Stixxay, who grabs the kill for himself, but now Stixxay's barely gonna get away himself. Seraph is taken down, and CLG have found themselves one hell of a fight. Now having to get away, Aphromoo goes down. Nisqy and the rest of Envy trying to make something out of this, but they've lost their damage. They're trying to keep him alive, but Nisqy's grabbing the killing spree. Lyra's gone, Stixxay's still in the fight. Nisqy trying to come back in, but he's not able to do much with only a taunt. Tries to get away, the flash over the wall to interact. The Justice Punch will not find the stop. And Hakuo walks away. Nisqy takes the blast going out, but Hakuo is likely going to fall. A little bit more damage seals his fate, and Huhi will make sure CLG wins this fight.
And the fight we talked about CLG wanted to have, kill the 80 carry, and then all our MR stacking boys are going to be fine. They sit on a 3-man equalizer and are actually fine because they killed Apollo at the start of the fight, and that's what they've been waiting for.
Exactly. The point I was getting at is when you're up against a team like Envy that historically the mid-late game has not been their strength, I'm drafting mid-late game compositions. They haven't been able to show that they can go ahead and push those early advantages. And this right here, that mid-game team fight, Seraph's ulti, it only really melts Stixxay there. And then they're buying so much time for Stixxay to heal up and for Huhi to get back in position and deal damage with those cooldowns rotating.
Such slim margins right there. The Galio nerfs prevent the damage reduction from being higher. That's why Apollo still died. Stixxay hopping away with about 5% health and then still lending critical DPS toward the end of the fight. But as you saw, they had to jump away, and Victor is great against that mob of bruisers, and he was able to pretty much free cast his spells on the outside of that fight.
And like that damage right there, and the way that Hui has just been playing this entire split, he made a lot of people's all-pro team valid. He was 3rd all-pro team mid laner. But look at this though.
Oh my god, eats a lot of damage here. Lyra now the one on the front line, but here comes the Galio Heroes entrance. Stixxay jumping back over the wall. The taunt comes out. Darshan gonna be locked down, jumping around, beaten down. He's done! As Apollo grabs the kill for himself. Envy taking down that enemy frontliner. They're right next to the Baron pit. The enemy AD is low.
And it's really good for Envy because they also have 2 Mountain Drakes. Stixxay low, Summoner's burned as well. Only Omar with the flash.
They have control, they can turn.
Here we go, boys. Aphromoo gets turned into a burger pretty quick. Stixxay jumping away, but they can't say the same for Hui. As CLG finds themselves 3 men down, and Envy are going for Baron.
The barrel from Lyra to take out Hui. That is critical when you are doing a Baron and there's a Victor around. You always have to be a little bit wary that he'd be able to jump in. Omar not able to have lightning strike twice, and he goes down.
Tries to get it instead, gives away another 300 gold and a 40-second death timer. Let's take a look what happens here.
Yeah, this was COG trying to get vision of Baron, feeling confident after that last teamfight win, but then just loses their initiation right at the start. He has to jump back, and then Stixxay getting hit by both harpoons. Look at the damage from Seraph.
Yeah.
2 harpoons. Basically takes Stixxay to 1/3. That means Darshan is trapped within the team. And after this, it was pretty much a suicide mission for COG to walk back in, because even with the front line being taken out from COG, Equalizer still wasn't burned. Neither was the Gragas ultimate. So Aphromoo was in there, but there really wasn't much of a chance of COG making this work.
Yeah, I believe that the best play there is just to sit back and wait for your blue trinket, which was up for Stixxay, and use it instead of having Aphromoo, who had blown his ultimate, to base check that. But Envy did the right play. You don't commit to it. You half commit. You wait because they have no vision with all of your control wards around. They have to check or they have to forfeit it, and you pivot from there. And they did it perfectly.
CLG not happy with the way that one played out, but Envy could not be more ecstatic with an 8,000 gold lead and 2.5 minutes of Baron buff to push with. They've been playing the pushing game this entire game, but now it's time to see if they can truly make an impact.
I've seen some different Varus builds. Just talking about this for a second. Infinity Edge in this one because they need the AD.
Uh-oh, Lyra caught out a little bit, but the hero's entrance going to keep him defended. Instead, it's going to be turned around, and Omar God is out as Apollo grabs himself a rampage. 4-1 and 6 on this Varus. That Infinity Edge doing some work for the burst, for the damage.
And having him fed.
Chased away.
Having that gold on your physical damage dealer is something you definitely want.
Well, the Blast Cone takes them both. Darshan might be able to lock him down and do something in this fight. Seraph returns a lot of damage, but who cares? Yeah. The big story is being told in the bottom part of the map. Inhibitor now under siege. Gonna be broken. No contest, really. Envy grabbed the first one 30 minutes into the game.
Envy kind of on the way to forcing this series to be tied up heading to a game 3. 4 Drakes, 4 of the best ones, double Mountain, double Infernal. You can see, even though Darshan kind of hit that Adaptive Helm Titanic spot where you think the Shen might have a chance against the Rumble, Seraph's still able to disengage that almost no problem. Hui has to go back to base before he's picking up his blue buff. So a lot of things trending in Envy's favor here.
And I think that CLG, with this 11,000 gold disadvantage now, they need to be thinking about the draft for next game, because they are giving too much over to Envy in the early game. Envy has won both early games off of CLG, just giving it to them. I feel like Envy is not as bad of a team as they may have thought, and that's why you need to draft something that gives you proactivity, because they are not going to drop the ball in this game from what it looks like.
The one time that Envy dropped the ball, we did see it happen because Apollo got caught out, but I want to make sure I bring to the attention of everybody watching right now, Nisqy just completed Locket of the Iron Solari, and along with the stone plate that he has, that means even if Apollo is caught out, a big shield is coming his way to keep him alive. It's going to be so difficult for CLG to find that win condition.
Yeah, and you do need to coordinate between your 2 Lockets as well, because if you use both of them, the second one you use has diminished effectiveness. The Stoneplate Locket is about 4 times as powerful as Hakuho's Locket, so Nisqy's got to get first Locket or make sure you're not spacing them in the wrong way.
Either way, Envy continues their push. Baron's out in 3, 2, 1. See you later. And that means Envy now has to push with only their base resources. They do have 6 turrets down. CLG with only 1 under their own belts. 1 inhibitor down in the bottom lane. Envy pushing the top.
Yep, and they have 4 people here. We talked about 1-3-1. Instead, they're doing 4-1. And even though Seraph has teleport and could be on the bottom side assisting the minions in, they're just treating that minion wave like they have a 6th person here to cause pressure.
Yeah, they let that wave crash pretty hard into that turret. And Stixxay is off right now, but they're really just trying to play this wave clear game where they're trying to make sure the waves aren't crashing at the same time. And if Envy's not going to escort the super minion wave in there, then COG might have the chance of manipulating that.
Yeah, and if Huhi is mid, trying to make sure that that tier 2 turret doesn't go down, then he's not clearing these minions on top, getting a little bit of chip damage, but this mid turret is kind of the big one. It's about to go down, that tier 2, very low.
He's still going to be able to get there, so I think without the Baron buff, Envy might be out of luck as far as trying to extend this push, and they are giving COD a little bit of time to sit in base and farm.
I feel like you swap it. I feel like you put the 4 people on the tier 2 because it's easier to get, and you put the 1 person on that inhibitor turret and push that.
Yeah. Outer turrets are also much more diveable than inhibitor turrets.
Yeah.
So now Envy's swapping all 5 to mid lane. Darshan's not quite there. They should be able to get this, but Afro goes.
Afro trying to start the fight off. Now gonna have to pop the ulti defensively. Taunt gonna be channeled by Nisqy. Apollo still not under any kind of a threat. Omar God gonna be the target for now. Chaos Storm into the Envy lines. The cast knocks Darshan back. The fight disengaged now by both sides. Stone plates and shields and everything all popped together results in no death from either roster.
Yeah, worth a try for COG, but they have to burn the Zac Flash away, and I can't wait to see the damage at the end of this game because no one has armor, so I feel like a lot of the melting that is happening in these fights is just that Varus crushing through the high health, low armor targets in COD's front line.
Yeah, and I like the build, the Infinity Edge coming through third, because I've seen so many different Varus variations with more attack speed and even just not going for a lot of AD overall, but having that third item just makes it this build where he has that extra punch to him where he can get through these tanks that, like you said, are not stacking almost any armor item here. I don't really see a complete one at all, just components.
Apollo is such a key player.
I would consider that a component.
Yeah, it's a level 2 component.
Yeah.
It still builds into something bigger.
Same with Chain Dust, right? We're not seeing anything like these Randuins coming through. That looks like what Darshan is building towards.
It's not full garage sale, it's more of a thrift store. It's not a completed item. It's not something you're going to buy at a nice bougie shop, but at the same time, it's still better than what you could have.
Yeah.
It's been crafted into something.
Yes. Either way, Envy now with Elder Dragon coming up in 25 seconds. They've got 4 Drakes. They're all valuable Drakes. That means they are going to have one big old bonus if they can manage to grab that Elder. They're going to have an incredibly strong burn to go with it. CLG does not want to be face-checking this crush. Darshan barely getting himself away as Omar God makes his way to the back line. Apollo now having a kite away. Hero's entrance blocking the fight further for CLG as Omar God's going to be taken low. The stun comes out, the play comes back. Afro Moon now absorbing the damage from everyone, but instead he's going to be going down. Omar God taken out, unstoppable for Apollo, who he now going to be chased down by Nisqy in the air. The front line is way too strong, and CLG has made a critical mistake getting caught out here.
Pings go down onto the COG base. Envy has Baron and Elder up, but they also have a wave bottom. They want to distract these two and then push for the win with the rest of the team.
Just don't let them back. That's all you have to do. Waste as much time as humanly possible. Nisqy's going to be doing just that. The taunt will not find its way on a Stixxay. The death sentence does. With Hakuo's dying breath, he continues to buy time for Seraph and Apollo and Lyra, who march onto the Nexus turrets, and Envy will tie this series up.
Aphromu's going to respawn, but he cannot stop it. Strong way to bounce back for Envy here in game 2.
I gotta say, Apollo, take a drink, man. That very last fight, he got knocked up by Aphromu. QSS Flash, the knockup, gets out. He knew he was the target, and he mechanically outplayed that in the blink of an eye. And really, Apollo just did so much work this game as well.
Yeah, and even with stacking MR, Seraph did have a great game. Right? He has had such a rough end of the split. He is by far actually the highest damage dealer in that game, 29,000 to Apollo's 20,000.
And it's such a strange thing, too. Like, I'm talking about how, they're all magic damage dealers, so they have to kind of, pivot in the later parts of the game. But the Abyssal Mask gets so much value in this team composition as a first pick or a first buy. And then when they have those mid-game team fights, it's like everybody is benefiting from this single item purchase. Even Apollo, who did have a little bit more physical damage there. But like you said, the fact he's hitting the Shen a whole bunch too does inflate those numbers in the side lane. But Seraph, with the winning matchup, they didn't have to stop any bleeding top lane. When they got pressure bot, it wasn't countered by CLG top, and this was a much better draft here for Envy.
And you know, going into this, just going into playoffs as a whole, there were some questions around Seraph, around how is he going to compare to the other playoff top laners, because he looked to just be of a lower tier than everybody else at the start. But when you're looking at the results of game 1 and game 2, game number 1, yes, Darshan won hard, but he had a winning matchup. Game number 2, all of a sudden Seraph's in a better matchup. He says, hold on, watch this, and just looks totally different.
Yeah, and I think one big thing that's happening in this series is when people think of COG, they think of dominant bottom lanes, right? Whether it was Aphromoo and Doublelift or even Aphromoo and Stixxay, but they have been pushed around by Apollo and Hakuho in laning phase. So not only does Lyra have this advantage on Omar God in the early pressure, the bottom lane has also just been 2 guys stuck at their turret the whole game, and that's the thing that I feel like could potentially tilt this series if that bottom lane of Envy continues to play at this level.
Yeah, and when I think of Apollo now, I actually think of a very dominant laning phase. The #1 in CSD, and we know that Hakuho does do a whole bunch of roaming, and Apollo is now just a guy who can push that lane over and over again and is a power point for Envy.
And when those two are able to have a laning phase like that, they can translate into the later game damage that we saw them able to showcase throughout all these fights, including the very final fight.
Watch Apollo here, because he's going to use the QSS flash out. So Huhi had actually flashed forward to commit to Apollo to try and burst him, knowing that he is the one target that they have to kill, and then the MR stack will come through. So Apollo really outplays there of the entire strategy of CLG on that approach.
Yeah, when you QSS a knockup, you are allowed to flash immediately after. It's pretty much the only thing you can do in the game to be able to get out of knockups.
What a performance by the Envy AD carry. But now, to hear more about how Team Envy tied up the series, and even though Mark's prediction is now officially wrong, we're still going to send things over to Dash and the analysts.
My socks lied to me.
Captain Flowers going there, so I don't have to.
Yeah,
but Envy, they strike back here in game 2, even us up at 1-1. And gentlemen, let's look at champion select, because I love the fact that Envy was willing to kind of orient themselves towards a similar style composition with early pressure, saying, hey, if we can garner similar advantages to game 1, we think we have the ability to close it out this time around.
I think some of that's good, especially around the bot lane. I do have a problem with both teams' comps, though, because Envy ends up taking a completely magic damage team comp, and they also end up with it not even like synergizing super well together in terms of the Gragas bodies, or ulting people out of a Rumble ult, as well as the fact they don't have anyone to go in for the Galio to combo off of, because we've always seen that.
They had Aphromoo.
They had Aphromoo, I guess. But generally, you want proactive dive tools to enable that Galio pick, which is something that just across the regions we've always seen is more, successful than a reactive Galio ultimate. So I thought that was a problem for Envy, but then, that was alleviated by CLG picking all losing lanes with a weaker jungle matchup early.
Picking losing lanes and being that, active playmaking, coming from the CLG side allowed them to have reactive Galio ultimates. There were so many good Galio ultimates from Nisqy to counter CLG engages, and that's where they got a lot of momentum from.
It's kind of funny, right? We were looking at Huhi just last game in terms of being able to absorb bans on pocket picks, and then here Nisqy with the flex, Galio to the mid lane, something that you wouldn't necessarily expect out of him. You're looking for the Syndras and the Lucians, the more aggressive style champions from a player like Nisqy.
Right, he's a guy that generally we called like one of the good mechanical players who has a really promising rookie season, and here he takes a team-focused champion. I like the idea that they're giving him counter pick on Huhi, as opposed to early on they went for the common red side strat of take something in the first round, throw 2 bans mid. Like you said, it doesn't work against Huhi, but here, give him the counter pick, and then the Victor Shen as the second rotation for CLG is just so weak in terms of the pressure that you're giving up, as well as the fact your bot lane's already losing. Take a physical damage top there that can build a little tanky, and then just have one pressure point, and then build MR.
I want to continue this conversation over some gameplay. Let's take a look at one of the early fights near the Dragon. 9:30 into the game. Envy comes out 2 for 1 here in the early skirmish.
So this one to me was the first moment where I was like, it feels like CLG are living in the past a little bit, because Omar's going to go in, feels like I can steal anything from Lyra, but it's CLG, again, engaging here into a disadvantageous situation, and Envy, not only do they, secure the Drake, but they are going to be able to get the extra kills come through. Nice move there from Stixxay to hop in and get 1 for CLG to salvage a little bit this situation, but when you lose the Zac passive in addition to 2 kills, Zac passive, I value like 75% of a kill almost, because the cooldown on it is so long and it really does make him change his play style.
Actually turns into a 3-for-1, I guess, with that roam down there from Seraph on the Rumble.
As well as the fact that, that was 9.5 minutes in the game. Afro's level 5, forcing that engage. So he's just going to get blown up. Their bot lane was behind this entire time. Once again, trying to defend Omar with his jungle invade that's coming in from Envy. They always sets them behind, and that has this kind of snowball effect where Afro is the playmaker, but he's in a weaker matchup from behind, and so he's trying to force stuff when he really shouldn't be.
Yeah, which is something that I wanted to commend Envy for, was continuing to pressure this Zac pick. We were talking about, Zac right now, you probably don't need to first pick him. And Lyra is just going all out on this. And not only just Lyra, the bottom lane is doing such a big job in setting that up, because jungle is so snowbally early on. And again, Apollo and Hakuho went for an invade.
And we saw it here with that confidence to kind of run back the early-oriented team composition. Envy extends a larger lead this time around than they had in Game 1. Of course, they weren't without fault. We did see CLG pick up one good skirmish 26 minutes into the game. A 3-for-1 here in the mid lane. The only real victory they're going to get out of this second game.
And here's what we're talking about with the Afro playmaking. When it's a good time, he's able to find Apollo. They finish him off there. Galio does complete it, but with the explosive shot already on him, he's going to go down. Nice ultimate by Seraph. Melts everyone low, but everyone gets out, so no one's dead quite yet, and you already have 2 big damage dealers down on the side of Envy.
Yeah, that was actually very close. If Stixxay had been finished off there, it would have been so much easier for Envy to clean up his team fight, but Stixxay got out barely with the heal rocket jump, then was able to leech off of the minions and return after the front line had locked up the rest of his team. So that was, as you said, kind of the moment in the middle of the game where Envy had this big gold lead, and there's this one big moment for CLG taking control. Didn't last very long.
Right, this is the thing. I want to point out the fact that every single summoner spell is essentially used on the side of CLG, and then 2 minutes later felt very disrespectful. They opted for another fight around the Baron. 28 minutes in, this is going to be a 3-for-0. All the advantages they just picked up in closing that gold gap go right back towards Envy at the end of this.
And I think you got to point to Omar God, because he's the one who really gets caught out to start this. He's looking for an aggressive jump onto Apollo, and it feels like he's just not quite aware of the game state where, like, yes, you did just catch up and it really bought you a lot of breathing room, but you are not the aggressor in this game still. He baits his team in a little bit there. Shen dies, Afro loses his ult. He's going to get comboed now when he tries to go and get a ward down to make sure the Baron's not going down. Everyone else gets killed, and this is really what broke the game completely open. Envy doing a great job punishing any small mistake out of CLG this game.
Right, exactly. You see there on the gold graph, it's a pretty clean gold graph for Envy, except for that one little dip. That was that 26-minute fight, but they are able to close out Game 2 here with the early focus. So what's the answer here from CLG? I mean, I want to go back to that top lane and again question the Shen pick. Although there were a lot of top lane bans thrown out throughout this Champions League, what are the other avenues here for Darshan to come away with a winning matchup?
I mean, you can take the Fiora and basically force the Galio mid knowing that, and then you have to play it into potentially some bad matchups on the top side, but there's not a ton that are like god-awful at that point. I mean, maybe it's Darshan versus Seraph, so you can kind of say we think he'll win that.
Right.
If you want to take something a little safer like a Kled, that's a champion that's still, for the most part, largely fine to take. You can also maybe look at maybe some of your bans, stop banning the J4 right away. You can grab that as a first pick. Things like that can really be flopped around.
I mean, you have to get power somewhere on the map. You can't pick losing jungle, scaling jungle, losing top lane, losing bottom lane. Like, they need to have some sort of early game power to play off of. So you at least can play, if bottom lane is losing, we play top side. If top side is losing, then we can try and play off that, but this Zac pick is just getting abused because they have no real points of power.
Right, the priority on Zac early, and then coupled with all the losing lanes is kind of conceding the entire early game to Envy. We'd like to see them at least switch that up. We're tied 1-1 here in the series. There's still more League of Legends coming your way. Game 3 of CLG versus Team Envy returns after the break.
Here we go again. Aphromoo going for it. Trying to get this one going all the way in. Stand United has been used. Galio coming in. The Heroes entrance for first blood.
Get Gragas. Play with Jay. Jay back up. Kai, bro. How long time? I'm supporting to save it. Gragas.
Got him. Go. Alter. Victor.
Okay, Victor. Don't die too. Careful.
Omar God's gonna be taken low. The stun comes down. The play comes back. Aphromoo now absorbing the damage from everyone, but instead he's gonna be going down. Omar God taken out, unstoppable for Apollo, who he now gonna be chased down by Niski in there. The front line is way too strong, and Envy will tie this series up.